Noticed there is a little sticker on the back of some of your guys' seats. That is a brand new tap tag that we have. If you want to scan that, did someone say hashtag? Tap tag. I thought someone said hashtag. I was like, those are two different things. No, that's a tap tag. So what it does, if you tap your phone to it or you take a picture of that QR code, it'll take you to a home page and you'll be able to get to giving there. You'll be able to get to prayer. If you need prayer, you'll be able to get to Bible notes that Ben will be using here in just a minute if you want to follow along. Just something we thought would help you guys out to navigate our worship services on Sunday morning. Well, hey, we're about to go into our time of offering. And typically I come up here and I say, this is why you should give, or this is why giving is so important. And it's very true that it is important. And here in a minute, the baskets will be passed, and you can give in those baskets. You can go to nicholsonchristian.org/give, or you can tap your phone to those tags, and you will see a giving option there as well. But for the next couple of moments, I don't want to talk to you about why giving matters, but instead, I want to take a moment for us to reflect and for us to go to our Father in prayer. And so the music's going to come down, and it's going to get quiet in here. And we're just going to sit in the silence for a little bit and pray to God, thanking Him for all that He has done, because we do not understand why it is so important to give until we know what we have received. So for the next couple of moments, we will sit in that silence, just thanking God specifically for all the things that you can think about that He has given to you lately. And then I will end in prayer, and the baskets will be passed. Father, I thank you for this day. I thank you for bringing us all here safely today. I thank you for the gifts from above that only come from you. I thank you for our health. I thank you for our well-being. I thank you for the home that we get to go home to every night, the safety and the comfort that we have. God, I thank you for the generous giving that you've given to us, the resources that we have, but ultimately through Jesus Christ and what He did on the cross, bearing our sins. God, I pray that this offering that we are about to receive goes to help the needy, goes to help the homeless, goes to help others know about your love, your kindness, and to spread the gospel. God, I pray that us as a staff, that we think about where this money is going, where these resources are going, and I pray that we think about that and we're able to utilize it in ways that honor you. And God, I thank you for being a good God, even when we do not deserve it. Amen.
Well, hey, it is a joy to be back amongst you. Um, yeah, that's about the smattering of applause I expected. So one of my mentors, he said, every preacher needs to take good long vacations. And I finally was like, why? And he said, well, if he's good, he deserves it. If he's bad, his congregation deserves it. So I'll let you guys decide which of those two are the category that we fit into. But hey, I'm back and I'm ready. If you want, like Steven said, we've got the new tap tags on the back of your seat. If you tap the tag with your phone or scan the QR code and you click on sermon notes, it's going to take you to a YouVersion live event to make it a little easier for you to follow along, maybe take some more things home. We'll kind of keep building that out as we go. But today, I want to tell you a story about the most single I've ever been. I was like 21, 22 years old, and I was living in Johnsville, Kentucky. You've never heard of it. It's not even on a map. The problem with Johnsville and being single was there were two single women in town, and they were both 75 and widows. Their biological clocks were long past mine. So I went into the world of online dating, right? I'm so old that when I signed up for eHarmony, my username was just Ben. Like, that's it. So I went on a couple of dates with some people online, and it was weird, right? You kind of like text each other and you chat, and then you like meet up for a date. And the weirdest one possible was we went to a mall to walk around. I think she wanted to be in public because look at this, like didn't want to be alone. And I like picked up a toy at the toy store and was like fiddling around with it, and she hit me on the hand and said, "Put that back." And I was like, this is an odd endearment tactic. And that was the end of the date. The second worst date, though, was when I walked into a coffee shop and my phone buzzed. And I looked at my phone and the message said, "Sorry, can't make it. I'm feeling ill." And I looked up. Mind you, online dating has pictures. And there in the corner was the girl texting someone on her phone. That did not go very well for me. But the worst date ever was I went to a girl's house and I picked her up because, gentlemen, this is what we do on a date. And I picked her up and I knocked on the door and she answered the door and she said, "Hey, how are you?" I was like, "Hey, great. Are you ready to go?" And she said, "Yes. Do you mind if my son comes along?" This was peculiar to me for two reasons. Number one, don't you think that should have come up in the "hey, tell me about yourself" text messages? Number two, who brings the kid on the first date? And I didn't know what else to do, so I froze and I was like, yeah, sure, bring him along. And so she brings the boy along, and let me give you some advice. There's nothing wrong with dating while being a single parent, right? I had no issue with dating someone who was already a parent. Like, that's life, it happens. But if you take your kid on the date, for the love, force them to behave. We went bowling, and this kid was like swimming down the aisle. The bowling alley manager came out twice to us and was like, "Ma'am, please control your child." And I'm like, I never want to ever experience this again. And it was like a fine date. She was kind, she was nice, all of those things. But the weirdest thing that happened on that date happened the next day. So I dropped her off that night, I drove home, and I was like, I am never speaking to that woman again. And I get online, and some of you are the right age that you remember AOL Instant Messenger. Who has Instant Messenger? Yeah. I could really embarrass you if I made you shout out your screen names, but I won't. But I get online, and she messages me right away, and she says, "I had a dream last night, and God told me I was going to marry a youth minister." And I immediately responded, "That's wild. I had a dream last night and God told me that was our only date." And like, that's how it went, right? And then later that summer, I had the privilege of walking into Camp Northward and meeting the love of my life. And I'm so thankful for that. And over the next couple of weeks, we're doing this new series called Heat, and we're talking about some of the most important, intimate moments in a person's life, right? And we're going to talk about dating and singleness this week. This is easy. The next 2 weeks, we're going to talk specifically about sex, and my only goal for those 2 weeks is to not go viral for the wrong reasons. I just want to survive. Like, when I prayed about this months ago, God was like, "Do this," and I was like, "Are you sure?" And he was like, "Yes," and I was like, "Are you sure?" And he was like, "Yes." Still trying to get him to change his mind. So next week might also be about, like loving your neighbor, like whatever. But This week we're talking about dating and about the sparks that kind of fly and how that goes. And then over the next 2 weeks we'll talk about the flames of passion and love and how when a fire is properly in the fireplace, it warms the house and it makes the house. But when it escapes the fireplace, it can burn the whole thing down. And then week 4, we're going to talk about restoration and we're going to talk about what it looks like to rebuild after the fire. But today I want to talk to one of what I think is the least addressed issues in the church, one of the least addressed groups of people, and that's single people. I was going to have y'all raise your hands, but then somebody was going to be like, oh, I'm shopping for a date right now, and that's weird. You're here for the sermon, not for the date. Although this is a great place to meet people. You should try it. Anyways, but there are single people here. Some of you are single and you've been single your whole life. You never found the person, you never found the one. Some of you are single because a whirlwind relationship found you at the altar getting married, and you thought once we got married it'll get better. Then you thought once we have a kid it'll be better. Then you thought once, and eventually it all fell apart. Some of you are single because you're not married, but you're in a dating relationship, and you're starting to get serious, and you're starting to wonder, is it time for us? Is it time to pop the question? Is it time to buy the ring? Is it time for us to really define the relationship? And some of you just aren't sure where you are and what's next for you, and I want all of you to know that's okay. Wherever you are, however you fit in this journey, it's all right. If you're a married person, this isn't a day off for you because we're going to have some conversations about attitude and heart that I think even married people will benefit from. One of the things we're doing for this series is every week we're going to provide some resources for you. Over on the table there's a couple books about love, sex, dating, intimacy, all of those kinds of things. Each week they'll kind of fit with the theme of the sermon. And one of those books is a fantastic book written by a fantastic author named Jonathan Pokluda. And Jonathan Pokluda in the book Outdated has this to say about singleness. I don't remember it, so it's got a, there we go. Nope, not that, that's the I am. There we go. It says, your singleness is not a problem to be fixed. It's a gift to live life fully. Right? What happens when you're single, what happens when you're dating, or what happens when you find yourself alone is somebody will come up to you and they'll be like, well, Jesus was single. And you'll be like, yeah, he's also Jesus. Singleness is a gift. Yeah, is it? Because I find myself alone every night crying over the sink while I eat my frozen pizza. And so it's difficult and it's hard. But here's what I want to tell you. If you're single right now, if you're in a relationship right now, if you're engaged, if you're married, wherever you are, if you can't be content in any circumstance, you can't be content in any circumstance. So if where you are right now in your life and in your situation does not bring you contentment, you are not finding contentment, changing it will not bring you that contentment either. You can't be content in any circumstance if you're not content in any circumstance. And this matters, right? This is something I personally learned the very hard way. Whether you're married or whether you're single, the most important relationships in your life cannot be the source of your contentment. There is only one source for your contentment, and that is Jesus Christ alone. Any other thing will not bring you the contentment that Jesus promises. Paul, who also was single, worth noting, he wrote 2/3 of the New Testament. I haven't written a book yet, so that was also a joke. You could have laughed. It's fine. It's been 5 weeks. You're not used to good humor. J. Law was here last week. He ain't funny, right? All right, so Philippians. Paul writes a letter to the people in Philippians, or the people of Philippi, a book called Philippians. And in the book called Philippians, Paul writes this letter from a very peculiar location, jail. Paul is in prison when he writes this letter. And at the end of the letter, in Philippians chapter 4, you can follow along in the YouVersion Live app. You can follow along on the screen. You can follow along in your Bible. In chapter 4, he says this. He says, I am not saying this because I am in need, for I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. What does Paul say? He says, I learned to be content. It's not something that magically happens. It's not something that just sort of zaps into you, but it's a learned, built process. It is a choice that you must work towards in your life. You must say, am I content? No, I need to work towards contentment. Am I content? No, I need to learn to be content. I told you, I learned this the hard way. Like looking back on my life, and especially on the dating side of my life, it's crazy to me how warped my view was of marriage and of dating. I remember my first girlfriend, right? It's always weird to like being back home because I can tell stories about people and then I'm like, oh, you don't know that person. But my first girlfriend in middle school, we'll call her Susan, that's not her name, but she was in the band with me, right? She played flute, I played saxophone. Why my parents forced me to be in the band, I'll never know. Maybe they loved the sound of a clubbed seal practicing down in the basement, just going, while I tried to squeak out notes. I think if you handed me a saxophone right now, I could still squeak out, ba-dum, ba-da-na-na, bum-bum. I think that's it. Ba-dum, ba-da-ba-da, bum. Anyways, nobody said it. Cool, that's a good test, all right? I wasn't even good enough for anybody to know. But I started dating this girl, and I started dating her the way anyone started dating someone in 1997. I passed her a note that said, will you be my girlfriend? Check yes or no. Here's what I knew about her. Her name was Susan. She had blonde hair, and she was in 3 of my classes. I was in love. She checked yes, passed the note back to me, and for a week, we walked by each other in the hallway with smiles on our faces. Finally, on Friday, wearing my middle school football jersey, I took her to the game, and at the football game, we held hands. I was in love with Susan. The next week, because we had held hands, like everything was settled by then, I started telling people, at 13 years old, I started telling people that I was going to marry Susan. I started telling people they wouldn't be invited to the wedding or they would. You can imagine what a 13-year-old girl thinks when a boy is like, I'm getting married to you. And immediately she wrote me a note that said, I am not getting married to you. We are breaking up. And my little heart was crushed. Because all of my life I had been sure. Like I know I was weird. I am weird. Like I don't fit in a lot of boxes that people think people fit into. But all of my life I was positive that if I could just get married, if I could just find the right person, then everything would be great for me. But it turns out none of that's true. There's another quote from Pokluda in the book Outdated that I love, if we can bring that up. He says, you don't have to know where a relationship will end, but you should know where it's going. I think this is so important, right? So like for students and for middle school and for college age people, it's not as if you say, I'm absolutely going to marry this person, but if you can't say, I think I could marry this person, then your relationship is not going where it needs to be going. So in my life, right, you fast forward from 13 through multiple unhealthy crushes and relationships, and I found myself at age 22 all alone after another broken relationship, in tears, sitting in a McDonald's near Johnsville, Kentucky, wondering what in the world I was going to do. And my phone buzzed. And it was my older sister, who knows me better than just about anybody does. And she said, I love you, and I'm praying for you. And she said, but more than anything, I'm praying that you can learn to be content being single. And she sent me Philippians chapter 4, verses 11 through 13. And it was in that moment that my heart broke. You see, the thing about contentment is not that we're unwilling to change, right? Some people hear content and they think, no, I've got to get better. No, I've got to work harder. No, I need more. That's not the opposite of contentment. The opposite of contentment is saying, I'll never be satisfied until. To choose contentment in this moment means to say, if I never get married, I'm still satisfied because Jesus is enough. To choose contentment says, if my wife never, fill in the blank, whatever you need it to be, That's okay because Jesus is enough. If my husband never picks up his socks again, that's okay because Jesus is enough. That's what contentment brings you. That's what contentment gives you as a gift. It's you saying, if this never changes, I am okay because it's enough. One of the most dangerous things married people can do is become dissatisfied. Right? You go to the gym every morning at 6 a.m. and there's the girl over there and she's working hard and your wife hasn't been to the gym in years. And you think, if only my wife worked out, then everything would be better. Wives, you go to work every day and the guy who's the desk clump across from you, he listens really well. And he always hears your problems. He never tries to solve them. He just listens and has empathy. And if your husband just had the empathy that he has, then everything would be better. Everything would be fine. Right? You're at the 7-year itch, or you've had the 7-year itch for 13 years and it's 20 years in and you're still not sure what's happening. Here's my reminder to you, married people. I said it last night at a wedding. I'll say it at every wedding I ever do. Love is not a pit that you fall into, nor is it a tree that you fall out of. Love is a consistent daily choice that you make by looking at your spouse and saying, I choose you every single day. Whether you're married, whether you work out, whatever it is, whether we have enough money, whether we ever buy the big house, whatever, I choose you every single day. Because they're not the source of your contentment. Jesus is. Now here's what happens. Is I say that, and the next time your wife comes to you and she says, listen, I need you to do a better job of helping pick up things when the kids go to bed. You look at her and say, I'm not the source of your contentment, Jesus is. It's not how this works. I've tried it. Doesn't go well. But you decide in your heart, it's not about what they do. There is no if-then statement. I merely and simply find my contentment in Jesus. Because here's what happens with an if-then, right? You're single right now and you're unhappy. You're single right now and you're miserable. You're lonely. You'd give anything to be married. So you meet a guy, you meet a girl. They sweep you off your feet. They buy you the ring. You get to the wedding. You go on the honeymoon and you realize, oh, this isn't what I thought it was. I'm still unhappy. This is the danger of if-then contentment. If you can't be content in any circumstance, you can't be content in any circumstance. If you're not happy now, you won't be happy then. Trust me when I tell you, a honeymoon doesn't fix it. Children don't fix it. Raises don't fix it. A new house doesn't fix it. A new truck doesn't fix it. You can try all of those things and you will very quickly find that until you can be content in any circumstance, you can't be content in any circumstance. You have to find and follow Jesus, or you will be disappointed. Your spouse will let you down. Your children will let you down. Your house will let you down. Your job will let you down. Jesus is the only place to find contentment. And so here's what happens, right? So people say, okay, so then what are the rules, right? How long do you have to know somebody? How long should you be married? How long should you be engaged? All those kind of questions, and I don't have an answer. The least romantic thing I tell marrying couples is I believe any two people on earth can be happy, content in their marriage if they choose so. I think that's why arranged marriages work so well. The expectations are extremely low. And they don't come in with romantic ideas, right? They're like, I don't even know this person. I don't think it's a good idea. Parents, please don't go and try and arrange marriages, but it's why they work. I don't believe that anyone has their one, right? There's not one person out there for you, because if one person makes the wrong choice, it's a domino effect that ruins everybody's choices. Somebody right now is going, that explains why you're not it. Somebody else picked them, right? Like, that's not how this goes. I tell people all the time, the summer of 2009, Whitney Stroop met the most handsome man she'd ever met. And then a month later, she went to camp and met me. It's not about rules, right? My parents met July 3rd, married that same year, December 30th. They've been married for 49 years. I know a family. They met, they dated for 3 years. They lived together for 7 years. They got married. They were married for 2, and they got divorced. There is no hard and fast rule. I can give you some hard and fast rules, parents, if you need me to. Like, you should be out of college, you should have jobs, you should be able to support yourselves. If you have to ask your parents for money for the engagement ring, no, you're not ready to get engaged. If you have to ask your parents for permission, no, you're not ready to get married, right? Like all of those kinds of things. But here's what I would tell you are the 3 rules for dating. Also, I need to say this. I told you I did a wedding last night, and I was talking with the DJ because, we're all friends. And the DJ, he was like, yeah, it was a good wedding. It was a great wedding, some sweet people that we love. And he was like, yeah, this is a decent wedding. I was like, yeah, it's one of the fancier ones I've ever done. He laughed. He goes, dude, last night I was in Cleveland. And he said, the budget for the wedding in Cleveland I was at was $350,000. Y'all, I'm going to be straight up with you because this is public record. I haven't paid $350,000 for a house. Like, that's insane. I don't know what the budget was for our wedding, but we've been married for 17 years, and that cheesecake was delicious, right? Like, it's all good. Okay, so here's the rules. Let's get to it, right? The first rule is if you're not content before, you won't be content after. So don't think, I'll be happy once I get a boyfriend. I'll be happy once I get a girlfriend. The baby doesn't fix it. The honeymoon doesn't fix it. The house doesn't fix it, right? Whitney and I both, at age 21, 22, were coming out of very difficult relationships. And both of us, I told you about mine, Whitney had a similar experience with someone where they had hard conversations with us that said, until you learn to be content, you won't be content. So right before we met, we had both individually, privately made decisions that we were going to put Jesus first and that Jesus was going to be the most important thing in our lives. So when we met, it was simple because Jesus was the center of it already. Number 2, and this is so important. I promise you, half the time people come into my office for marriage counseling, this is the answer. This is the reason. Don't marry to change. If he's running around on you now, if you don't know where he is now, if you can't trust him now, you can't trust him then. Okay? That doesn't change. If she is needy and critical now, she will be needy and critical then. That doesn't change. Don't marry thinking once we get married, that problem will be solved. It will not. It will be multiplied. One of the most romantic things Whitney and I ever did was on Valentine's Day, 2010. I was living in the house in which she would move in just a few months, and I'd been living there for 2 years, and I don't know if you know this about me, but not very neat, not very tidy. And she said, let's spend Valentine's Day deep cleaning the house. And so she brought her cleaning supplies, because I owned none, to the house. And we spent the day cleaning the house, scrubbing baseboards, mopping floors, doing things I didn't know existed, like vacuuming carpet, like it was unheard of for me. But Whitney would admit to you, she didn't leave my house that day going, I'll never have to teach him how to clean again. She knew what she was getting into. I do think there's times where she prays, Jesus, make him a little more OCD. But all along, she's never expected a change, but she's hoped for one. And she knew. And I've gotten a lot better. Most of the time, my socks make it in the hamper. Turns out I'm not very good at basketball, and I miss more than I make. That's another story. So that's number 2. Don't marry for change. Number 3 is Jesus at the center. I am actually a Christian today because my grandfather fell in love with my grandmother, and she said, I will not date a man who doesn't love Jesus. And that man marched down the aisle the next Sunday and devoted the rest of his life to Jesus. It works. I don't always recommend it. But if you don't have that standard from the get-go, it will not last. Maya Angelou said their heart should be so entwined with Jesus that you have to chase after him to get to them. If Jesus is not at the center right now, he won't be at the center of your relationship. I love this quote from Pastor Tommy Anderson. It's okay. I'll tell it to you later. But it's something to the effect of, if Jesus is not the bride of your wedding, then your wedding will falter. Because Jesus is the bride. We, the church, are the bridegroom. If Jesus is not at the center of it all, if Jesus is not in the middle and the central part of every relationship, then the relationship will falter. Every wedding I do, I use that line, love is not a tree or a pit that you fall into, nor a tree that you fall out of. And every wedding I do, I read from Ephesians. And in Ephesians, late in chapter 6, Paul says, you should be like Christ and the church. Christ loved the church so much, his bride, that he willingly laid himself down for her, presenting her to God as bruiseless, as pure, as holy. If your marriage, if your relationship isn't embodied by both of you willingly laying down your own lives, then your marriage is not what Jesus has designed it for. It should be a contest of who can serve the other, who can help the other, who can sacrifice more for the other. If you're not content now, you won't be content later. You must be content in every circumstance. Together, we're going to take communion. And we're going to be reminded of the way that the ultimate groom, Jesus, died for his bride, the church. And we're going to be reminded of how he came to this earth and lived a perfect life, flawless, sinless in every single way. And his body was broken and his blood was poured out for us. And he rose from the grave, victorious over death, so that we could find contentment, not in our circumstances, not in our relationships, but in him. During this moment, if you need prayer, while everyone comes up for communion, the prayer team will be down front. They'd love to share with you. They'd love to hug you. They'd love to ask Jesus to give you the contentment that you long for. Maybe for you, it's your marriage, and you and your spouse both come up and you say, listen, we've both had trouble finding contentment. Bring it to us today. Maybe it's not right now, and you email me later this week, and you're like, hey, we need to talk about finding contentment. Maybe it's in this moment that you come forward and you ask for prayer. Maybe for you, it's this moment that you say, I've never found that contentment in Jesus. Please show me how he can save me. But take this moment, put everything else aside, every goal, every dream, every wish, and ask Jesus for contentment in him. Father God, it's in this moment, it's in this heartbeat that we ask that you would give us contentment, God. Let us know that this circumstance is the very one in which you've placed us. This moment is the one that you designed for us. And that through all of it, we will find you rich in mercy, how you've